The other day I was talking with one of my students who seems to be more piped into all the gossip that's going on in Jiu-Jitsu, and I try to stay out of it. I'm not on chat boards, although I did have to respond to one thing just the other day. I can talk about that in another piece. But generally I stay off the chat boards. I know they're good for marketing, but the thing is, you're not going to really win in any kind of battles against internet warriors. I'm not going to be arguing with somebody who's been in the art for 6 months and they spend all their time on the chat boards kind of doing their so-called research on jiu-jitsu, where really all they're doing is talking amongst themselves, and you have this little bubble of what is right and what is wrong, who's good, who's not, and who's a great teacher and who's the best teacher, who's got the best team, who cares. But I guess there's this one professor who decided to come out and talk about Rickson. Because of that, he's kind of created a firestorm among a lot of professors. Because despite what people in the chat boards might think, among the vast majority of us who have been in the art for a long time, we all have a tremendous amount of respect for Rickson, for Horian, for Royce, for Helson, the pioneers of Jiu-Jitsu in the U.S. The people who laid it all on the line, brought their art here, set up their garages, and taught whoever would come and learn. To pay their bills, I know Helson was digging ditches and working in construction, just so he could get enough money to pay for the rent while he's pursuing his family art, spreading Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. He could have probably stayed in Brazil and made a lot of money doing other stuff, running his academies there. Same with any of them. But yet they decided to take such a huge step, come to a country that spoke a different language, that had a different culture, and create what they've created. And in that one generation, to just go from Horian being in his 30s to now being well into his 60s, and creating what he's created. And see how many people around the world do Gracie Jiu-Jitsu now. It's all over Brazil, but it wasn't all over the world. Once it gets to the U.S., that's when you hit the big time, right? And if not for the Gracies coming here, I would not be doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I would not be talking to you about it. I would not know Dave Kama, who was just over my house this weekend. I've seen him already 4 times this year, and we're only beginning July. A big chunk of my life revolves around Jiu-Jitsu, and I have no idea what I'd be doing if not for the Gracie family. I have a lot to thank them for, and to come out and talk crap about them, it just, I don't get it. I mean, why? What's the benefit of doing that? Sorry about the sun, I can't seem to figure it out where it is. Just to have this particular black belt come out and talk about him, that's his prerogative. I read what he wrote, and it wasn't all that bad. He was expressing an opinion, and he's been in Jiu-Jitsu for a while. He's been a black belt longer than me. I don't know if he's been doing Jiu-Jitsu as long as I have, but he's certainly been a black belt longer than me. He's been in it long enough. He's got enough wisdom to be able to make some comments and have some rational thought behind it. And like I said, I read it, and some of it makes sense. Whatever I say, when I say some of it, meaning not all of it, it's not that it doesn't make sense, it's just that I don't necessarily agree with it. He's not wrong. Just like for him to say that Rickson believes one thing or whatever is not wrong either. The one thing that I would say, though, is that somebody who's achieved the Lifetime Achievement Award of Jiu-Jitsu, meaning they've gotten their red belt, they have more wisdom than almost anybody else. And that being said, I'm more likely to defer to what they say versus what anybody else says. So I've had the privilege of training under 3 red belts named Gracie: Horian, Helson, Rickson. And every single one of them has contributed significantly to my life. And I'm thankful to every single one of them. And if any one of them is willing to talk to me for 5 minutes, I'm going to take that opportunity, and I'm going to learn more of what they've gone through in life, so that I can get a better understanding of the art that I love so much. It just doesn't make sense to talk, right, about them or about that I agree or disagree with them, because really nobody cares, right? Do you care if I have any disagreement with Hoist Gracie? No. You don't know me from Adam. The fact that Hoist believes one thing and I don't, and what am I gonna do? I'm gonna jump to the highest mountain. I'm gonna shout it so everybody hears it. I guess that highest mountain would be Facebook or YouTube, right? All this hubbub that's going around about what this particular black belt says really doesn't matter. And I really think that we should just kind of just let everybody live, let them say what they want to say, and just worry about our own business. Worry about your own students. Worry about how well your students respond to jiu-jitsu, how well they do in life, how well you can contribute to the betterment of their lives. Don't get into this battle, about politics, because that's really what it is. In the end, politics just, it inflames, but it really doesn't get anybody anywhere. It doesn't make the art any better. Criticizing Rickson doesn't make any sense. If anything, I would want to spend time with Rickson and learn. My cousin just had the opportunity to train with Rickson. It's a life-changing event because, he's been doing jiu-jitsu for over 20 years now, and he's never gotten to train with Rickson, and he finally got to. And the stuff that Rickson taught him was stuff that he didn't even imagine existed. It's one thing, to be able to evaluate what you know, but how can you evaluate what you don't know, right? Or even worse, evaluate what you don't know even exists. It's that unbelievable. Anybody who talks, especially about Rickson, they only talk because they've never trained with him, right? You don't know what you don't know. And the funniest thing is, you're on these chat boards, people will talk pretty disparagingly about Rickson. And, I'm not protecting the guy. He's very capable of protecting himself. They say, oh, well, the new jiu-jitsu this and new jiu-jitsu that, and Rickson is old school, and Rickson wouldn't be able to deal with this and that. When Rickson was in his prime, they were saying the same thing. Jiu-jitsu was evolving, and they would come into the academy, and if they didn't get destroyed by Rickson, they got destroyed by Dave Kama, or Mark Eckert, or Henry Akins, right? It really doesn't make any sense. When you're young in jiu-jitsu and you don't know anything, or you think you do, then you're going to talk a lot of crap. The funniest thing was when, there's one instance that I had a student a while back. He's not a student of mine anymore, and he liked to play the strong game. And I just told him, just relax. You don't need the strength. He'd learn. He took a lot of privates from me, and he learned the techniques. And then he'd still kind of play strong, and then I'd smash him, and I'd just say, relax. Don't use your strength. Use your technique, right? This was before I had done this video on the game equals T plus P. Remember that video? You can kind of reference it and see that's what I call the formula of jiu-jitsu. He would kind of argue with me and saying, no, I need to lift weights. I need to be stronger because that'll make my jiu-jitsu better. And I guess that could be true if your technical level is very high. If your technical level is very low, then as we mentioned in the earlier video, then what you do is you substitute your power for your technique. What you lack in technique, instead of working on making that technique better, you'll go, okay, well, this is where my strength comes in. Okay, well, then that's not jiu-jitsu anymore. He had 8 months to a year in jiu-jitsu, and he's telling me that what I'm telling him won't work. Okay, you do have those people that have strong beliefs, but I believe a lot of times their beliefs are not founded in anything concrete. So all these people who like to contradict Rickson is not God. Only God is God. When it comes to jiu-jitsu, there are not that many people who know more about jiu-jitsu than Rickson. Rickson is what I deem the master of masters. Masters of jiu-jitsu will come to him and ask his advice. Even masters and grandmasters who are many years his senior will ask him for his advice. Why is that? Because his wisdom in jiu-jitsu is far beyond anyone right now, anyone living. Hanging out with Dave Kama last night, he was saying Rickson should have gotten the grandmaster rank long ago. long ago. When I say long ago, I'm thinking he's thinking at least 10 years ago. Rickson is that outlier, right? Anybody who understands statistics, you have the mean, which is basically the middle, you know, the average person, and it falls under what we call a bell curve distribution, where one standard deviation from the mean, meaning, you know, this much and this much, will cover 66% of the population in that group. So you have 66% of black belts in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu will fall under X group, you know, X level of knowledge, X level of ability, X level of wisdom in Jiu-Jitsu, right? And then you have 2 standard deviations out, which will take out, I think, 95% of the people within Jiu-Jitsu. Then you have 3 standard deviations that will take you out to 99%. Well, an outlier is somebody past that, right? So Rickson's level of knowledge and wisdom and ability in Jiu-Jitsu is an outlier, meaning he is not only in the top 1%, he is, so far, they cannot measure him because they do not have anybody who has been at his level in Jiu-Jitsu. It's like the IQ test, right? The IQ test is only as good as the person writing the IQ test, right? There was that guy out in New Jersey, maybe 20 years ago, I remember seeing something on him, and the contention was that he is the smartest man in the world. Well, they measured his IQ. He smashed that test. He walked out and he said, that was easy. Come on, give me something harder. So he was a true outlier. They could not measure his IQ because they didn't have a test that could measure it. There is no test that can measure Rickson's Jiu-Jitsu. None. He is thinking of things in a way that nobody can comprehend. Not even his fellow family members, right? As Dave Kama once told me, when I asked him about black belts, how it seems to me that the abilities of black belts ranges from whatever level, the bottom level black belt, you know, up. And it kind of seems infinite as far as that. In fact, to me, my observation was the difference in black belts, right? From the least able to the best able is greater than the difference between white belt to black belt, right? A lot of people don't believe that, but to me, that's what I believe. Just because you get the black belt doesn't mean that you're a master of the art. It just means you achieved a certain level according to your professor. If your professor is a low achiever and low ability teaching, and he's giving out black belts, what does that make of his students? You're only as good as your professor. It would make sense that whoever has the most accomplished professor, accomplished not only in mat abilities, fighting abilities, but also in teaching abilities, that would mean that his particular students it would make sense that they would be the highest up. You know, Gracie was a very, very good instructor, very high standards. He held his students to a very high standard, which is why his sons they all have excellent jiu-jitsu, and their black belts tend to all be very good as well. You don't hear about these fake black belt types, or the ones that are mediocre, or the ones that so-called bought their belt from a master. You don't really hear about those all that much from Elio's sons. But that doesn't mean that I know that it's happening or not happening. I just don't hear about it. With Rickson, you can't measure the guy. And if you can't measure the guy, all you can do is, to make yourself feel better, is you launch grenades at him to try to bring him down. That's what I call the old crabs in a bucket thinking. I'm a crab in a bucket, and you're trying to get out of this wretched bucket, but I don't want you to get out because I want to be better than you, so I'm going to reach up and pull you back down so I can step on you and try to climb out first. And that's what a lot of people in Jiu-Jitsu are. They're crabs in a bucket. You know, they have to think to themselves, to make themselves feel better about themselves, they have to go and try to yank other people down. Number one, no matter what you say, it won't be true about Rickson. And number two, you just don't know enough. Anyway, that's really all I have on that. And I don't want to, I don't want to disparage anyone. And like I said, I'm not here to defend Rickson. I'm just saying my observations on, having trained with him and having been his student, and also knowing the people who he's actually trained. I know he's given out a lot of black belts, but there are a lot of black belts that he's given out that he didn't train because Rickson just didn't have the time. Just keep your nose to the grindstone. Try to better your skills. Try to understand jiu-jitsu more. Worry about yourself. Spend less time on the chat boards, and instead use that time to think more about your jiu-jitsu. Don't think about anybody else's jiu-jitsu, because it really doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It only matters what you're doing. Okay? Make yourself better. And try to contribute back positively to the art, because the only way we're going to get more people to learn this, especially the self-defense side, which is dying off among professors. When you think of all the new black belts that are coming up, most of them don't teach self-defense. So for those of you who want the self-defense side of the art to continue like I do, you need to work to spread jiu-jitsu in a positive manner. Anyway, that's all. Have a great day.